Welcome to episode 28 of Leading People with me, Jerry Murray. Have you ever felt demotivated or struggling to get engaged with a new project? Or are you managing a team and find that motivating them is an ongoing challenge? This week's guest is author, coach, and NLP trainer Jeremy Lazarus, with whom I took a deep dive into the world of motivation. And not just your own motivation, but also the motivation of others. Jeremy has written 4 books, including one for sports coaches, athletes and players entitled Ahead of the Game. He began his career in the world of finance before realizing that his true calling lay in helping people grow and develop and perform at their best. His work with leading sports people, for example, English Premier League goalkeepers, has enabled him to teach others how to apply their mindset for success to other walks of life, including the world of work. During our conversation, we unpack the role that motivation plays in achieving what we want and how managers and leaders can use this knowledge to build highly motivated teams. We also explore how choice plays an important part in how we deal with setbacks and how we can ensure that no matter how we define success, we don't neglect the financial aspects. So, let's dive right in. Jeremy Lazarus, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jerry. Great to be here.
So, Jeremy, our paths crossed, I'd say, over the years in the last, let's say, go back 10, 15 years ago at various conferences. And I think I've even heard you speak in the past. And I have some of your books. However, there are many people out there who may not yet know you. And it might be very interesting to let them get to know you, let our listeners get to know you out there. So how did you get here? And was there a person, place, or an event stands out on your journey to where you are today? Or was there this epiphany moment where you kind of woke up one morning and went, and you said something needs to change? So let's start with that so people get to know you a bit better.
Okay, so I had 18 years in the world of finance. I was an accountant, a corporate treasurer. I worked in the City of London for 6 years. I was a management consultant with Ernst & Young. I was finance director of a restaurant chain called Yo Sushi. Some of you may have heard of this.
Yo Sushi, yeah.
And it's a great restaurant chain. And all the while, I found the higher up I went in the world of finance, the more I was asked to disrespect people. And I didn't have the language for it at the time, but it just felt wrong. What I now know, it was against my values, basically.
Right.
So it's a fairly long story, but in 1997, I started attending some personal development courses, which I loved, and I learned about coaching, even though they weren't formal coaching courses. And to cut a very long story short, in 1999, I quit my job to set up my own coaching business. And I came across NLP, and I guess the rest is history. Since that point, I've been coaching and training all sorts of people, businesses, charities, trade unions, elite athletes, as well as running NLP practitioner courses, master practitioner courses, etc. In terms of key moments, there were 1 or 2 key things. I won't go into details because the owner of Yo Sushi is a public figure, but certain things happened when I was at Yo Sushi which made me realize that there was no way I could carry on in the world of finance. And as luck or the universe would have it, one of the fellow directors there knew someone who was actually at the time one of the leading coaches, life coaches. And in 1999, not many people knew about life coaching. Anyway, I met her. She said, let's see what you're made of. Give me some coaching. After that, I did. And she said, that was great. 10 out of 10, I want you to be my coach. So I quit the next day, set up my own coaching business.
As you do.
And her name was Eileen. Yeah, as you do. And her name was Eileen Mulligan. And I will always be grateful to that lady.
Sounds like she might be even Irish or have Irish parents, you know?
I think she does, yes.
Very good. So, Jeremy, starts his life in the world of finance and realizes it's not going to fulfill him for the rest of his working life anyway. And you go into the world of personal development and coaching and training and sharing, I suppose, and all this wonderful stuff with other people and helping them develop themselves and then pass it on to other people. I guess that's what happens then. And you mentioned even sport there. And one of the books I have of yours is called Ahead of the Game. And you've written how many? 4 books, is it? Maybe tell our listeners a bit about each of the books you've written and what was the motivation at the time, or what was the purpose of writing each of those books? So I guess you wrote them in different periods. What was happening at the time? So maybe you can share that with us.
Okay, so again, a slightly personal thing. In 2005, I'd been an NLP trainer for 6 years. A long-term relationship ended in 2005, and I was at a bit of a crossroads, and I felt a bit demotivated, and I thought, well, I did a bit of goal setting. I thought, well, I love coaching, I love training, what's missing? And the one thing that was missing was working with athletes, because I'd done some work on my courses where people who were kind of part-time athletes said, oh, I did really well in my business. By the way, I came second out of 250 in a load of triathlons. Or I beat my brother at tennis for the first time ever using what you taught me. And I thought, well, I'd love to work with athletes. So my vision was to work with elite athletes. So I did some research, and a marketing consultant said to me, if you want people to think you know what you're talking about, write a book. So I did. And what I realized was that all the work I'd done with athletes was using exactly what I'd been doing with my business clients, but just putting different words on it. So instead of talking about profits and market share and percentages, it was times, goals, distances, etc. So just change the language. You can use the same techniques. And although I wasn't that experienced in working with athletes, I was very experienced and knowledgeable about working with NLP. So I wrote Ahead of the Game in 2006. And I remember when I got the first copy through the post, I thought, if I die tomorrow, I've left something. It was my legacy.
Right.
And if I roll back the clock 2 years previously, I ran a practitioner course, and one of the delegates was the finance director of a publishing house. Go forward to 2010, and they wanted to write a book on NLP, or have someone publish a book on NLP, an author write a book on NLP. They contacted me because I'd known the director. And so that was the second book, and that was called Successful NLP, which was a kind of general NLP book. And then it was a bestseller. It was number 1 or 2 in Amazon, NLP, pretty much every day for 2 years.
All right.
And I was going to write another book, which is called NLP for Business Success. So using similar principles, but focusing primarily on using NLP in the workplace. And that was, I think, 2012. And then the following year, they asked me to write a little kind of workbook, which had to condense probably around over 50,000 words into about 12,000 words. And that was the hardest book I'd ever written, because to condense it, literally every word counted. So, and that again was very much a workbook, so people could actually use it in their life generally. So those were the 4 books, and those are the motivations.
Yeah, it reminds me of that. Was he a polymath? Blaise Pascal said, I would have written less, but I didn't have time. It's very famous. I think he was a bit of a philosopher, mathematician, etc. This was his famous thing. I would have written less, but I didn't have time. Yeah, it is the challenge. Even doing speaking gigs, people come up to you and they say, well, we want you to speak, and you're thinking an hour or 90-minute keynote, and they go, yeah, you've got about 10 minutes. And you go, really? And then you say, well, okay, then I need to be paid this. And they go, what? For 10 minutes? You say it's not going to take 10 minutes to do it. The whole thing's going to take weeks to prepare it, because what you're asking me to do is condense all that I know into 10 minutes. And it turns out it's a very short time frame for anything. So, good stuff. Yeah. So, I guess Head of the Game could be quite a useful book at this time of the year, because, if I go out this last while jogging, it's quite congested since the beginning of January. So I guess there's a point where a lot of people are going to do something about their health and their fitness this year. And I guess Ahead of the Game will give them some interesting pointers. Is that true?
It will, and it's primarily for people who play some kind of sport as opposed to necessarily to like a recreational jogger, and it will absolutely help them to set goals, to have a positive mindset, and to get into a good state. If they do decide to compete, even in a local fun run, to get into a good state, and to overcome obstacles and blocks in their mind.
Well,
so yes, it would help.
Some people I know started off just with the goal of losing some weight and getting fitter, and then they said, you know what, now I feel better, I'm going to go for another goal, which is I'm going to run a short marathon. Or I have some friends out there, they might even be listening, who've gone into the world of triathlons, and they're thriving, and it's just part of who they are this last couple of years. Big shout out to you guys if you're listening. So therefore there might, so just getting fit is one thing, but then for what purpose? And for what purpose can be many different things. It could be, why don't I test this fitness out by doing a 5K or something and see what happens with that? Okay, so let's. So one of the topics that we had a chat about this last week, and we thought, okay, what is a topic that might be very relevant to listeners at the moment? And one of the topics that keeps coming up, because you've got this whole thing about this concept of great resignation and people wanting to leave their jobs and things like that. And, wanting to leave is one thing, leaving is another thing. We need to make that clear. But underneath it all is this conversation around engaging people and all that sort of thing around how do you keep all these people, if you can engage them, they'll stay, etc. And before we can really talk about engagement, we probably need to start to explore the topic of motivation, because it's hard to be engaged if you're not motivated. So what are some of the ways in which leaders can better understand what motivates their people? And can you give our listeners some real examples from your own work?
Sure. So I'm going to draw on some work within the field of NLP, and the topic is called values. And values, in summary, it's what is important to someone. So what does someone want? What do they look for in any particular context? And if you can give someone the opportunity to have what's important to them, what they want, they're going to be motivated. So in the field of work, if, for example, somebody, let's say they want challenge, variety, and recognition, and you as the leader or the manager find out what's important to the person and know what recognition, variety, and challenge means to that particular person, and offer them the opportunity to have that, they're going to feel motivated. So I would say that for leaders and managers, one of the most useful things, if not the most useful thing you can do, is to do what you and I would call a values elicitation. And it's a process which can take, the short version will take 5 or 10 minutes, the slightly longer version will take an hour. And it involves asking a series of questions, literally what's important to you, what do you want, what do you look for, making a note of it in the client's or the employee's words, and then when you've got the list and you get them in a hierarchy, so what are the A's, the absolute essential values, what are the B's and what are the C's, finding out what the person means by challenge, what do they mean by variety or recognition or whichever value, the values I've mentioned, and then use the line manager or leader doing what you can within the realms of the constraints of the organisation to help the person to have as much of what they want as possible. And if you do that, you will have the people eating out the palm of your hands.
Right. So and if you can't do it, which means you can't satisfy their values, that's information as well.
Fine. It is. And if you can do most of them, or if things change, you just sit there and have a conversation with them. And if it means that the client or the member of staff has to leave to find what's important to them, fine, they do that, and then you recruit someone who is right for that role. Where the values are compatible or aligned.
Okay, so I know some of our listeners are working in this area of coaching and consulting around change and engagement and things like that. So maybe let's dive because you're an expert on this. Let's dive a little bit deeper into values, because it's at a simple level, it's what's important to me or what's important to you. However, we can have there can be different dynamics to values. I will start and then I'll ask you to jump in. So having your values satisfied is going to give you massive energy and motivation. Having your values not satisfied is going to probably leave you a bit empty in that. And then there's the concept of mismatched values, which are going to really jar, because if honesty is a really prime value for you, and somebody says, go into that meeting and pretend X, Y, Z is not happening, you're going to find that very uncomfortable, right? So if we could do
Very
that
stressful.
and then get into the types of values, because they're not all equal. A value statement can be loaded with a lot of stuff around negative things as well. So maybe we can just unpack that to give some extra depth and tips to people.
Sure. So values, generally the most important values to someone are going to be very abstract. So words such as fulfillment, satisfaction, challenge, variety, they're very abstract words. And you sometimes hear people say, well, I don't want to be bored, or they tell you what they don't want. Mm-hmm. So it's important to find out what they want instead. Mm-hmm. So if someone says, I don't want to be bored, okay, what would you like instead? Well, I want to feel challenged or engaged or stretched. Mm-hmm. I think because values are so personal to the individual, mm-hmm. I'm reluctant to sort of be too prescriptive about it. So you could ask 100 people and you'll get 100 different answers. Now, there will be certain patterns typically, and in certain organizations, there'll be different types of values. So, for example, one of my nephews works as a trader in the city of London. Mm-hmm. In a bank. So I imagine people from that sort of world, things like money, success, achievement would be really important to people in that world. Yeah. My other nephew's a teacher. Mm-hmm. So I imagine the values of teachers will be very different to the values of traders. Yeah. So there'll be certain generic families of values, mm-hmm. and for a leader, I think it's important, despite that, to speak to each individual person mm-hmm. under your direct control and find out what's important to them. Mm-hmm. And if you're running a large organisation, there will be certain generic values and what the organisation stands for, which will attract the right kind of people for that organisation.
And sometimes the mistake made by organizations is that 4 or 5 people get in a room and they say, these are the values we want. And they don't check in whether actually sometimes they're not even the values that those people have. It's just that they think these are the ones that they should have. So they stick those in there. And then they wonder why people don't use the phrase, live the values.
Well, that's a very interesting point. The idea of espoused values versus real values, and the directors or people who set these 5 or 6 values and just put them on the website. Do the leaders walk their talk? Mm-hmm. Because what I found generally is that the people at the top of an organisation, they set the tone. Yeah, and if they don't walk their talk, then it filters down. Mm-hmm. And I won't get into the politics of some of the things that are happening in the public domain at the moment, but we can see that people at the top, their attitudes do filter down. Yeah. And who knows, by the time this podcast goes out, these things might have changed dramatically. So let's not go there. Absolutely. and by the very nature, so let's get back to the way you were defining values. By the very nature of the fact that they're abstract words, they leave a lot of room for interpretation, which is where a lot of the issues start to arise when 4 people or 5 people decide what the values are, and each one leaves the room with a slightly different view on what that would manifest itself like. Exactly. So what I've seen in effective organisations is they're clear on their values and they give a list of behaviours which would indicate that those values are being met, and a list of behaviours which would be contraindications. Yeah. So they've got a bit more depth to it, more detail. So, and I think with individuals, a line manager doing this work with a member of his or her staff, they would find out the values and then, as you say, delve down to take each of them in turn and ask, let's take challenges as one example. If challenge is the value, I would ask okay, what do you mean by challenge? How would you know that your value of challenge has been fulfilled? What would I, as your line manager, need to do and avoid doing such that your value of challenge would be fulfilled? And if the line manager does this and knows this and delivers as much as he or she can, each team member will be really engaged. They will go that extra mile and they'll really respect the leader and the manager.
Right. So the message is, it's not enough just to ask a person what motivates them and get those value words, those abstract words. It's important to have a really tangible idea of what the behaviors are, both their behaviors and yours if you're the leader, and leaders who define values and say these are the behaviors we want, the behaviors we don't want, need to be able to display the behaviors that the organization wants, because otherwise people are going to call them out on it. Isn't that right?
It's hot air otherwise.
Right. But there's a value that intrigues me and at the moment, because it's everywhere. It's the value of trust. And the interesting thing, you probably come across this when you've worked with individuals, that trust can be a fascinating value because it can mean not being betrayed, can't it? It isn't always just, I want to be able to trust everybody or honesty. Sometimes it's about the opposite or the thing that they're trying to avoid. And we need sometimes to probe a little bit. As you say, it's a very individual thing, so you shouldn't make any assumptions. And at the same time, we need to make sure that the value doesn't have, because what happens if there's a lot of away from, as we call it, in a value? What tends to happen then?
Okay, well, a couple of things I want to say. There's firstly, when you talk about trust, that to me it's a very interesting value because there's at least two main aspects to trust. So one is about trusting their competence. Another one is trusting their integrity, if you like.
Okay.
So, for example, my parents, I would trust them with my life. I'd give them my keys to my house or my money, whatever, because I trust them that way. But I wouldn't trust them to deliver a training course because I don't have the competence to do it.
Okay.
So I think people need to be very clear what they mean by trust, and if someone uses that word, to understand what that person means. Now, going back to your point about away from, so the idea of motivation is that people can either move away from what they don't want or move towards what they do want. So, for example, let's take money. I know we're going to talk about that a bit later. So some people want money because of all the things it gets them, the things they want. So they're moving towards having that. Other people want money because they don't want to be poor. They don't want to struggle like their parents did, and they don't want to go without. So the first one is taking them towards having that, and the other one is the away from, avoiding not having it. So if you go back to trust, then for some people, trust is important because they perhaps have been betrayed in the past. Somebody let them down, and they felt really bad about that, and they don't want that to happen again. Now, one of the problems generally with away froms, that they can be good in terms of motivation. They can kickstart your motivation. So going back to the health, for example, you're talking about people running. It could be that someone is, after the Christmas period, perhaps they're a little bit overweight and they're feeling uncomfortable and they don't like that feeling, which is an away from motivation, which could kickstart them into going out to the gym or jogging, for example. To maintain motivation, it's much more useful and effective to have a towards, so that once someone has moved away from being unfit, they have something to move towards. In other words, perhaps to run in a 5K competition or a mini marathon or something like that. There's something that they're moving actively towards and will keep them motivated. So away from motivation generally only lasts a relatively short period of time.
Okay, so if we go back now and we take the scenario of the leader, the manager or leader, who is now listening to this going, you know what, these guys have a point, and I think Jeremy has something very useful. He's pointing out the value of understanding the values, because that'll help me understand the motivation. Now, we have to probably accept that many of these people are not trained in some of the techniques that coaches are trained in. So how would you advise leaders to start off making sure that they've done got a coach to help them find out what's their motive. Would that be a starting point? Could that be something they should do first before jumping in and telling their people, I'm going to take your values, I'm going to find out what they are?
Sure. So obviously I'm slightly biased in this, being a coach and an NLP trainer. I think even if leaders and managers don't want to do that, I would recommend that they examine themselves, have a high degree of self-awareness so they understand themselves at least to some degree, and therefore that would help them to understand others. And of course, if they have their own coach, I mean, a lot of leaders do have their own coach because it's useful and beneficial to challenge and to raise their own self-awareness and to help them achieve their goals faster than they otherwise would. Mm-hmm. There's a specific thing, and this is a little bit of a plug, but if people want to find out there's how to elicit values, mm-hmm. There's two of the books I've written, Successful NLP and NLP for Business Success. If they go on my website, there's a chapter, the values elicitation chapter from both of those books are completely available, completely free of charge.
Okay.
So if they go on my website, which is www.thelazarus.com, mm-hmm. Go in there, go to the free stuff, and they'll download chapter 13 and chapter 14. I think the first one's Successful NLP, the second one is NLP for Business Success, free of charge, and it's about 15 or 20 pages each. They're very similar information. If they read that and just follow that process, they will absolutely be able to elicit anyone's values very quickly.
Okay, so we'll put the link. I'll put the link in the show notes so that anybody who wants to find that link will be able to find it back in the show notes. Okay, so getting some sort of coaching would be quite useful for a leader first to make sure they've got their own self-awareness, and if they were impressed by that, which they probably will be if they get a really good coach, and they'll probably go, I want to bring this to my people, because we've never seen very many Wimbledon champions win Wimbledon without a good coach, right? Okay. So let's take that a little bit. I want to go a bit deeper, and I want to link it to some of the other work that you've done. You've written about this concept of the mindset for success, and how does this apply to leading people and motivating them, and working with them? Because what we're talking about here is, if we go back about 5-10 minutes ago, is each one of your people is going to be quite unique. There'll be some overlap in what gets them out of bed in the morning, and each one of them will probably need a different pep talk from time to time. And giving them the pep talk is to be able to give them a good pep talk is usually reliant on understanding what gets them out of bed or what motivates them. So you right about the mindset for success. How can we relate the mindset for success to this topic of having your people highly motivated, engaged, and performing really, really well? In the next part of our conversation, Jeremy outlines the simple principles of the mindset for success and how to apply these to our daily lives.
Okay. So, for me, the mindset for success is a set of beliefs that underpin all success. Let me give you some examples. One, there's no failure, only feedback.
So what does that mean? What does that mean?
What does that mean? Okay, so what it means is that if you don't get the result you want, it's not a failure in inverted commas. It's an opportunity to learn. It's the result of what you've done. And if what you've done hasn't worked, do something else. Adjust what you're doing. Tweak your approach so that next time you've got a better chance of success. Mm-hmm. If someone believes there is failure, and then nothing will get done, because the moment they try something, if it doesn't work, they stop.
Right.
Whereas people like, one of the examples I use in my training course, Thomas Edison.
Yeah.
Allegedly, the guy who created the light bulb, allegedly it took him, say, 10,000 times to create the light bulb. And people said to him, Dr. Edison, what was it like having failed 10,000 times? He said, I didn't fail. I successfully found 10,000 ways it didn't work.
Yeah.
So it's just about the mindset. Now, it's not about right or wrong. It's about what's useful. And it's much more useful to have the mindset of, okay, it hasn't gone the way I want. What can I learn from it? And when I was doing the research for Ahead of the Game, people like Billie Jean King, the tennis champion, Roger Black, the 400 meters runner, Sebastian Coe, the Olympic medalist 800 and 1500 meters, they all said, it took them a while to realize it, but they all said that they'd realized eventually there's no failure, only feedback. So they hated losing, but they channeled that disappointment into learning and improving.
Right.
So that's one example of the mindset for success.
Give us some more.
Some more. Okay. If someone else in a broadly similar situation can do something, then I can. Now, common sense with this, just because, let's say, Usain Bolt can run the 100 meters in whatever 9.58 seconds, doesn't mean we all can, because we're not broadly similar to him. But if you want to achieve something, look for people who have already done it or done something similar. And if they can, then you can. It's just a question of how. So it's having that belief that it's possible. Again, putting common sense around this.
Right, okay.
Another one would be we all have it in us. We have a lot of resources, a lot of untapped resources. Mm-hmm. So even if someone doesn't know how to do something right now, they have the ability to learn how to do something. If they have the ability to manage their own state and be confident or resilient. My guess is, and I do this on my training course, I say to people, have there been situations in your past where you've been right up against it, but it's been something that's really important to you, and somehow you've dug deep to get the resilience and the inner strength to achieve what otherwise you thought you wouldn't have been able to do? And everyone has been able to do that. So I think a lot of NLP and a lot of the work I do, and you do, Jerry, I think as well, is to help people to tap into their own resources that are deep inside them that they can use when it's appropriate.
Yeah. Actually, I have a podcast episode from last year on resilience. One of my former students, coaching client who went through a tragedy when the bombs went off at Brussels airport, and today is out there talking about it. And interestingly, she draws on some of this type of principle. But carry on, because I think people out there, what other things help you develop this mindset for success?
Well, I did a master's degree a few years ago, and my dissertation was on the mindset of elite professional goalkeepers.
Ah, yeah.
So I interviewed goalkeepers in the Premier League in the UK and the Championship, which is one level below, and also goalkeeping coaches in the Premier League.
Yeah. And
there's something you'll be aware of, Joey, called the principles for success, and it's been in NLP for a long time. As I was going through the transcripts of the interviews, basically, this is what the goalkeepers and goalkeeping coaches were doing, even though they didn't know about NLP.
Right.
They were using the principles for success, and those principles very quickly, because there's one thing I want to mention, which is absolutely essential. The principles were: know what you want, know what your goal is, take action, take feedback. We call it NLP sensory acuity. Build good relationships. Keep on good terms with people. Be flexible. If what you're doing is not working, be prepared to adapt it, and have a PMA, positive mental attitude.
Yeah.
And I think that final point, the PMA, I think the whole of the mindset for success can be summed up with what I'm about to say. And this is the idea of, well, I'll give you the jargon, we call it being at cause.
Yeah.
And what that means is taking total responsibility for your actions, the things you do and the things you don't do, and not making excuses. And if there were one thing I would offer anyone listening and everyone listening, it's to take full responsibility for your life. It sounds very bland, very, very obvious. I can tell you that so many people I've come across think they're taking responsibility. And when the chips are down or when they're going, it's tough, they want to make excuses.
Yeah. So let's just take somebody out there who's going. Have you guys been around this last 2 years? There's something been happening, and I didn't start it, and I have to live through it. So translate that, because that can be misunderstood. I mean, I'm talking as somebody who understands this. It's not responsibility for what's happening around you, is it? It's responsibility for how you respond.
It's the ability to respond, responsibility. So yes, there has been a pandemic, and I know it's been tough for a lot of people. Each of us has a choice about how we respond to that. That's the point. So yes, we can't control what the scientists and what the politicians are doing, but we can respond to the situation. We can change the way we go about the way we live our life. I know there's, I'm going to get a bit controversial. I know there's been some people who have suffered financially through this. Perhaps they didn't have any savings, and they were, they're really struggling. And on one hand, I mean, I empathise with them. I feel for them. Having said that, for many people, they haven't made a financial plan. Financial experts would say, have some money in the bank for a rainy day. And I believe everyone can do that. And I know some people listening is going to say, oh, but what about this person? What about that person? Everyone can do it. You can choose, you can, there's work out there if you want to create it.
Yeah.
So it sounds quite harsh, but that's my belief, Jerry.
Okay, and let's just loop this back now to the values conversation we had earlier.
Sure.
When a significant emotional event happens in a person's life, or even in the world, whether we're responsible for it or not, right? It tends to have some impact on values, doesn't it? So let's just talk about that, particularly the idea of health and money in that, and what might be happening out there for the moment, in case people are wondering, maybe they're feeling a bit internally contradicted about the work they're doing and whether they want to keep doing it, and they need the money, they want to look after their health and all that. Maybe just unpack that a bit, and maybe then you can help us understand this idea. You've written about how people aren't as financially successful as they would like to be. So how can they still emerge from this with the focus on health and at the same time not lose that ability to be financially successful? It's a long question, a lot in it, but it gives you
a lot in it, yeah. Okay, so where do I start? So on one hand, there's a set. Actually, no, let me step back. So the wheel of life. There are, depending on who you are, 7, 8, 9 different domains of life: health and fitness, work, career, money, relationships, social life, spirituality, that kind of stuff. And in my experience, there are probably 4 underpinning areas which, if people have got those reasonably sorted, they're going to have. These are the foundations of a good life. Health is one of them. Work or career is another one. Relationships are personal relationships, and money. Those 4, I think, are, in my experience, what I've observed, are absolutely fundamental to having a fulfilled life. And whilst we can't control what happens, we can, what's the best way to express this? We can alter our behaviours so that we're more likely to be healthy, more likely to be wealthy. Let me give you examples of how you can do that. So most people know that certain foods are not good for them. Most people know that smoking is not good for them, and that exercise is good for them.
Yeah.
So it's not rocket science. There's a lot of information, particularly with the internet. If it's important enough to someone to be healthy, there's a load of information freely available on how to be healthy enough. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no excuses. Now, I accept that sometimes people have certain conditions, and that, my dad died of cancer a couple of years ago. Okay, so things like that happen. But for the vast majority, we have it within ourselves to be healthy.
Right.
Or to give ourselves the best chance of being healthy. That's probably a better way of putting it, the best chance of being healthy.
Yeah.
And something, there are some events that happen.
Right.
Is this answering the question around health? I don't know.
Yeah, and then how do people maybe balance that out with the wealth then, health and wealth? Because people might say, but I have to work every hour of the day to pay the bills, and my career takes over, and etc. So maybe people out there are wondering, okay, I know I need to be healthy, I know I want to be healthy, but life keeps getting in the way, and work keeps getting in the way, that kind of thing. So how can people get their head around this new, let's say there's an opportunity now to have a new beginning where you can get both of those in balance?
Yeah. So I think it's about prioritizing and being clear on why these things are important to you. So I believe in terms of health, people can eat reasonably healthy. It takes about as much time to cook an unhealthy meal as it does to cook a healthy meal. Exercise. Sure, not everyone can spend 5 hours a day in the gym, but you can spend half an hour going for a walk. There's a lot of people during lockdown who got healthier than they'd ever been because they spent half an hour a day going out for a walk. I know people who said that very thing. They do half an hour, they lost 2 or 3 stone in weight, and they're as fit as they'd ever been.
Yeah.
So I think there are things to adapt. Things people can do to adapt their lifestyle to fit what they want. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to the mindset for success. If people want it enough, they'll do it. In terms of working, I know some people have to work harder. My dad used to work over 60 hours a week. He was a cab driver.
Right.
He'd work 60 to 65 hours a week. But you can still find time. There's 168 hours in a week. That's another 100 hours to do even... Was it 20 minutes 3 times a week is what the experts say?
Yeah.
20 minutes of hard exercise, that's 1 hour a week. Mm-hmm. I believe people can find that if they want to do it enough. So I think the key thing is to find out, or to be clear for yourself, what's important to you and why it's important to you, and how being healthy and having sufficient money links into, it could be, for example, that your family is the most important thing in your life. How does being healthy help your family? How does you working hard and making money, how does that help your family?
Mm-hmm.
In the final few minutes, Jeremy shares 5 reasons why people are not as successful as they'd like to be financially, and what you can do to mitigate these factors. He also provides a key tip on how to approach creating outcomes in the future.
Okay, and what some of the things that you can share with people out there as we get to the last part of the show about how to be more financially successful?
Sure. So in the work I've done, I think there are 5 reasons why people are not as successful as they want financially. Firstly is they don't have the motivation. What I would suggest is that people make a list of 10, 20, 30 different benefits to them of being financially successful, however they define success. Right. So it could be benefits to their family, to a good role model to their children. So make a list of all sorts of reasons why that would be useful. That can increase motivation. Secondly, some people have got what we would call limiting beliefs about money. I don't deserve money, or money's the root of all evil. Well, I would really urge people to examine those beliefs and to have a coach or to challenge those beliefs. I think, is that really true?
Yeah.
Linked to that could be negative emotions. So fear, they're scared of money.
How can people be scared of money? How can people be scared of money?
Well, they can be scared because they think, I've got this money, what would I do with it? I don't know what to do with it. Or people might want me just because I've got money.
Okay.
Or my friends may not want me not want to be there because I've got money. So they could be scared of having it, or guilty about having it, or guilty about not having it. So these negative emotions can distort people's views of money. So to be clear thinking about what money is and what it isn't. And all it is, the economic definition is about there being a store of value and a medium of exchange. That's all money is. All the bit about rich people are good or rich people are bad, all those beliefs, that's just beliefs.
Yeah.
It's not the truth. So those are 3 reasons. The other 2 reasons are, 1, people don't understand how to deal with the money they've got. So how to invest it, for example. They don't understand how money works. Well, there's loads of free information available to help people understand what to do with money, or to get a good financial advisor. Go and speak to an accountant. There's plenty of information out there. And then the 5th point is people not knowing how to earn enough money. And generally, if you can find out what people want and find a way to deliver it to them, to serve them, you'll get money. So my dad was a cab driver. Okay? He worked 60 hours a week. People needed to go in London. People needed to go from A to B in London. So he found out what people wanted, and he would do that. So we're not talking about being rocket scientists or brain surgeons. Ordinary people can do this.
So how does that reconcile for somebody who just says, well, I just go to work because I need to, and I just do that job because that's the only job I can do? Now, I know there's limiting beliefs in that. So how does somebody go, well, I'm getting old now, so nobody wants me, etc. How can they shift those beliefs based on what you just said?
Sure. So, 1, be clear why they would want to shift it. Why, if someone at 60 or 70 years old thinks, yeah, actually, no, I do want money, to be clear on why they want it. And secondly, to look for counter examples. In other words, people who buck the trend, people who are 60 or 70 or 80 who do go on to succeed or make money. And if you look hard enough, there are people who do that. So it goes back to what I said earlier. If someone else can do it, then I can.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily about being a multimillionaire. It could just be taking the view, some people in my area, need someone to walk their dog. I'll spend some of my free time walking dogs. So I like dogs. I like doing it anyway. So I get exercise and I get money for it.
Okay.
There's a little bit of creativity and serving, finding out what people want and finding ways to deliver that.
Okay, so I think that can certainly give people out there a lot of food for thought. Not the wrong food now, the right food.
Good food, healthy food
for thought. Let's put it that way. So I think we've got to the last few minutes now, Jeremy, and I think a core theme running through this whole conversation is about understanding what motivates you.
Yes.
That big why. So are there any last thoughts or tips for people out there saying, oh, but what do I do next? Or how do I get started? What are a couple of things you can just share as we come into the last few minutes? And as I said, I'm going to put links in the show notes and that to the various things. But if you just share a few things now.
So one of the things that most people do is, if they're thinking about the future, they think, okay, what do I want in the future? And they do it from the point of view of now. So there's in their mind, they're in the now, looking forward. I think a more effective way of doing that is to go into the future in their mind. So go forward a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or even longer. And imagine, let's say they go forward 20 years. Let's say someone's 40, they go forward to their 60. So imagine being 60 years old, having had an amazing last 20 years, where people from all different areas of their life, their work, their social, their family, society, are saying great things about them, and they feel really fulfilled. What's happened? What's happened over these last 20 years? And what makes them feel totally inspired at the age of 60? And so proud of what they've achieved, and then take that knowledge and that desire, that purpose, if you like, and bring it back to the now. And so what they're doing is creating the future from the future, and they can take actions to work towards that. And of course, Rome wasn't built in a day, but if people have got a sense of purpose and where they're going, then that helps them to make the appropriate decisions to get there.
Right. And it's not unusual Jeremy, it's not unusual because people do back planning all the time in projects.
Yeah. I'm not sure how many people do it in their life, though. So that's one tip I would really urge people to do.
And if they need any help?
If they need help, then there are a lot of coaches out there, a lot of personal development courses out there. Yes, I'm biased. I coach. I'm an NLP trainer. You're an NLP trainer. There are a lot of really good, useful resources and a lot of books out there.
Mm-hmm.
I've mentioned some of mine, but there are loads of self-help books. And also, find a buddy, a friend
mm-hmm.
who's going to challenge you. Even if you don't want to have a coach, you don't want to go on a personal development course or read books. There are podcasts as well, obviously, all sorts of the self-help. Find a friend who's going to challenge you, really challenge you, and hold you to account. And just be so crystal clear about what you want to achieve,
mm-hmm.
so clear on your purpose that it's not an effort to get there.
Right.
It's a pleasure and a privilege to get there.
Okay, Jeremy, I guess people can connect with you on, LinkedIn, via your website, etc.
Yeah.
And it's Jeremy Lazarus on LinkedIn. Anywhere else that they can reach out to you now after this?
I'm on Facebook and Twitter, but mainly LinkedIn and my website, and obviously drop me an email or even call me.
Okay. Very good.
All my contact details are on my website.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I hope our listeners have got something very useful out of it and enjoyed it as much as I have. So, Jeremy, thanks very much for being my guest.
Jerry, thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. You will find details of what we covered in the show with links, etc. in the show notes. Please share your key takeaways from today's guest and let your friends and colleagues know about the podcast. Oh, and if there's a particular author or leading thinker you'd like me to interview, just get in touch and I'll do my best to get them on the show. This episode was brought to you by Wide Circle, helping you make better talent decisions. To learn more, visit widecircle.eu. That's WIDECIRCLE.eu. Until next time.